For 3 years, we were supposed to have a Skype chat, and finally, it's happened. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's
So,
me. It's our schedules that go crazy sometimes.
yeah, I know. So you're a busy man, of course, for good reasons. So how's your daily routine? What do you do when you wake up? When do you go to work? Tell me about your, usual days.
I stay up too late and go up too early. No, not too early. Not too early, really. But it's because I'm too late in the night. I don't know why, but it's just nicer to write in the night. It's just it's stiller, and you have more kind of space to write good music. So I've done it in all my life. I write until 3, 4 in the morning because nothing is bothering you. It's really weird, but it's always been like that. And then you probably go up at 10 o'clock or something and probably start writing at. I'm mostly writing actually. I live a really nice life with a family and a dog, but a pretty boring life because it's a lot of work. It's just different projects and different films and TV series and games and stuff. So it's not like it's not this amazing life with traveling. I travel for meetings, of course, all the time. But it really involves a lot of work to work with the film. It's just and you don't have like weekends or so, but you just kind of work on.
Yeah, but it's fun work,
Yeah, it's fun, and it's also and what you see here is my studio, and it's built in. It's an old barn from 1685. So I live in the countryside in a really old house in a really beautiful place. So I'm really, it's a really nice place to be and write music. But it's just like, I think sometimes people think that writing music to films and games is about going to premieres and stuff. And that's kind of the most insignificant part. And it's the most boring part also. I mean, it's not that you're working for, but you're working for the process of doing something and creating some world or whatever, creating something different, whatever it is.
Yeah. So how did you get into music? Tell me about your childhood.
I don't really know, actually. I think it was when I was really small. It was this teacher who had me coming up singing. This sounds like I'm 100 years old, but actually in the 70s, they had organs where it's called harmonium. You probably have it in Iran also. Yeah. You do it with your feet and you get air compression, and then they play organ. So she would take me up to the front of the room, and we would sing psalms, whatever, religious chorals. It sounds like 1800s. Yeah. It wasn't. It was like 75 or something like that. And because I had a good voice, so they sent me to singing school. So I actually choir school from like 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and actually the high school. What do you call it in English? Like college or whatever you call it.
College, yeah.
When you're like 15, 16, 17. So I went to singing school, and I thought when I was like 10, I wanted to be an opera singer. And
right?
That didn't happen.
So you weren't really planning to become a musician?
No.
Yeah.
I was not. Because it was more, it just happened. And then they come from different places in Stockholm, and then they go into, I lived outside Stockholm, so I had to go into Stockholm.
Yeah.
And I remember that I begged my mother not to start that school because I thought I wanted to be with my friends. And she said that just give it 1 week and then you can decide.
Oh.
You just try it 1 week. And I've often thought about that week probably changed my whole life because I didn't want to, but for once she said that, no, I want to decide that you try it 1 week. And then it was kind of fantastic to be with guys who liked music, and in 1 week I loved it. And then after that I went to musical high school as a composer, classical music and jazz. And after that I've been touring as a jazz musician and a folk musician. Actually with some Iranians I played, not much, but just one concert. And a lot of Indian musicians. I went to India 3 times to play.
So what were you playing back then?
I'm playing keyboard and piano and harmonium, though. This thing. And actually, I'm trying to get one of those There's one instrument. I'm a soundaholic. I buy instruments all the time, and I sample instruments. And if I turn the camera around, you will see modular thing. And it's just, I love instruments. And I have one I want from Iran. It's from Balochistan. It's this. You play with keys, but it's with.
You mean kemenche? Kamanche?
Yeah, probably. It's like in India they call it bulbul tarang.
Yeah. They call it kamanche.
Yeah, but I think they're more. Maybe they're a bit more developed in. I thought I heard a guy play it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. After that, I toured a lot around the world, and then when I was 24 something, I made my first film, and I didn't intend to do it. It was just getting to know a director who wanted me to play piano. So I played piano, and on his next film, he said, "Do you want to write music?" And I was like, "Okay." So I never wanted to go into film. It just got there.
Yeah. So how was the first experience of making music for picture? Did you know anything about making music for movies back then?
No.
Was it scary?
No, not scary. I've been writing music all my life, so I kind of, it's my thing to write music. But it's been the same all the time. It's just a lot of work. If you work the way I work, I always work from much to little. Yeah, and it kind of struck me when I started with the first film that it's just a lot of work. And I heard an interview with the guy who wrote Dracula. I don't know his name. I'm sorry for that. But I don't know his name. And it's a beautiful, he's written beautiful music for the old Dracula. And he said a super cool thing in an interview. He said that something like, I suddenly realized when I release this film, it will be there forever and my music will be heard forever. So I have to do a good song. And that has stuck with me. It's stuck with me. I read it. I read the interview when I was like 25, and it's really stuck to my mind that you have one chance and then it's there forever. You know, they still listen to this beautiful Dracula music because it's an iconic film, and you never know what films will become iconic. You don't have control over that. Yeah. So it's like you have to do your best all the time. And once you're ready with a film, that's also an interesting thing. They kind of slip away, and you have to concentrate on the next thing because nobody cares what you did before. You have to kind of always be at your best. Yeah.
Exactly. So you scored your first film in 1991, the same year I was born. So you have the career of my whole life. So when we're working or advising less experienced composers like me, not using young composers here, what do you tell them? And what's the most important tip to them?
I have people that I've educated, like Patrick, who worked with me on Battlefield. He used to be my assistant, and now he's a co-composer.
Really?
Yes, yeah. So, and another guy, really talented, Uno, also. They're all really talented. They're really great. And I have 3 or 4, and it's always the same thing. It's always about. It's about getting people to. It's not so much about knowledge, because knowledge you can just acquire knowledge, by going to schools and stuff. It's more about training your intuition and being bold, not being afraid. So I think a lot of the stuff that I try to. I also have sometimes pupils from the musical high school, just one seminar a year, just one, just a masterclass seminar, and we very seldom talk music. We much more talk about like Zen Buddhism, or like it's about what is behind the music. Why are you doing this? Why don't you let go of the ceiling and just fall and see what happens? So it's much more about not being safe. It's about having the courage to be unsafe. Because when you listen to film music, a lot of film music tends to become somewhat safe. You kind of know what, this is good, and it kind of fits. It's not bad to the picture, and, it works kind of okay. Yeah. But it's really when you do something that's, you just start something out and you just see whatever will happen. It can be really bad, but it can also be fantastic. So you have to have this kind of You have to have the courage to be really bad in order to be really good. And that's often the problem with young. If I would advise you, for instance, it's this feeling that you have to kind of deliver something good. I think you should take away good and bad from your language and just do, like I'm doing this library with this instrument and I'm playing it. And while I'm playing it, I'm not thinking too much. I'm just doing stuff. And then I put it into a computer and then I work with it. And you much more be in the zone, much more being in the where you are right. Not being so I have to do a piece in D minor that's 110 BPM and it, and it has to sound like The Godfather or something like that. Not having too much thoughts of what it should be. More about trying to create something new. Or also, I have a quote here that I really like up here. Don't.
Is it in Latin?
No, it's up here. I can read it. I think it's up here now. Oh, it's something that you shouldn't copy other guys. You should go in the footsteps of the masters. You shouldn't do what they did. You should understand why they did it. That's what it basically says.
Funny, because last week I got a project, and they gave me a temp music, and it was your music from Battlefield 1, and it was very an ethnic music about Iran and Persia, but it was a music from Battlefield. And I asked them, why are you giving me this? It has nothing to do with this country. But they said, we love this. It's so emotional and it fits our game perfectly well. And I sat down and I said, okay, all right. I sat down and I started to think about writing the theme for this game. And I was thinking that I can't copy Patrick. This is the best version. I can't be better than this, other than be a cheap copy of this. So I started doing something different. What they want from that, it was a kind of a sad music they wanted, and meanwhile some being epic, and so I started doing my own thing, and I sent it to them. And they said, all right, this is not what we wanted, but this could be the temp music you now need to work on. So this is not perfect, but this is a good direction. Go this way. And it was very happy, although my music wasn't accepted as I sent it to them. But I actually, managed to have my own way, not copying you. And exactly, I know what you're talking about.
I think that's really important. You have to kind of don't follow in the footsteps of the masters. Think what they thought. There you have it.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't go. You shouldn't go in the backwater of somebody else. But you should kind of grasp what they're thinking. Because there are a lot of masters out there. I mean, obviously you're listening to. I mean, you can listen to Bach or. There's so many great composers that have been alive and are alive. But it's just interesting to see what they've kind of, it's just, they have this feeling, and then you kind of get inspired by the feeling, but then you take it to yourself and then you do something different. And for me, when I listen to, it doesn't have to be young composers, but composers that ask me something, it's mostly common that I feel that they have that they're a bit afraid of writing bad music, and I think you have to write bad music in order to write good music. I mean, it's like it's very obvious. If you want to be in your safety zone, you can ask me to write a film theme, and I can go out and write it now, and I can come back in 5 minutes and give you a film theme, because that's what I'm trained to do. Yeah. But if I'm going to write a good film theme that kind of has something very unique, it will take me much longer time, because I have to find the right feeling and whatever. So it's like I have this safety zone where I know where I can always deliver. But if I want to go over that safety zone, I also have to lower my kind of safety net. So it's this kind of, you know what I mean? If in order to be
exactly.
good, you have to risk being a bit bad sometimes, and that's I kind of. Teach them to not be afraid of being like going wrong. It's not bad if it sounds like shit sometimes. It's okay. It's not fantastic. I mean, it's bad if it always sounds like shit, but it's you should have this kind of self-confidence that it's okay. And it's not nice to write bad music, and it's not nice to do bad libraries when you sample, but it will happen if you seek for your own sound and your own unique touch. You have to go out there.
So, Johan, I'm sure you heard this many times that they say if you want to make it big, you have to go to LA or Hollywood. But again, that raises the question that what is big? Is it the high budget movies, or is it better movies? You live in Sweden, and I absolutely love your country's cinema. For you, I think the best place, I guess, you can make music for movies is Sweden. But tell me more about it. Why haven't you moved to LA? And are you happy with your current situation?
I'm super happy. I have a family, like I said, and a dog and a wife, and a really nice place to live. I think it's a fantastic place to live, and a great studio, whatever. I don't know really. It's just that it's many things. One thing is that I would say that in Europe you have a flatter organization when you do films. So you have more like you sit with the director, you sit with the sound designer, you sit with the editor all days, and you kind of work together. So it's more like teamwork. I like that. The films I made in the States are more hierarchical, organized. So you have like you work, and then you probably work with the director, but then there's like producers and executive producers. It's more steep. Yeah. And that's okay, but it's more fun to work on a more flat level. It's more firing in a way, that everybody's working on the same goal. Then it's another thing is that you have pretty long lead times in films. So I would always, so far I've been kind of busy all the time, and I'm very loyal. So when I sign up to a project, I do the project. Even if they ask me for an American film, I still do the project I've said yes to. And that's been probably a bad career planning thing, but it's that's how I think you should do it, and that's how I've done it. Then it's I wouldn't say that all the American films are so much more fun to do, because it's I think some of the films I made in I don't know, like in Sweden or Norway or France or whatever, has been really fun to do. And so it's ultimately in the end of the day, you want to do good film with good people that reach a lot of viewers. I think I kind of done it in a backward way. So when we made a TV series called The Bridge, it's sold to the whole world, and it's remade in the States, and it's remade in in Russia, and it's remade. So I kind of doing stuff that travels the world, but from Europe. And I think for me, it's an interesting point of doing that. And we were Oscar nominated with Kon-Tiki. We were Oscar nominated with In a Better World. I think we won an Oscar with that one. It's just I like to kind of change the perspective. And then, to be honest, if they asked me for Harry Potter, I would jump on it. So it's like if I had the time. So it's not that I don't want to do stuff. I don't think I want to live there, though. Yeah. I've been there like 3-4 films, and it's okay. It's super nice people, but it's just very far from home, from your family.
Yeah. So tell me the story of meeting Patrick. How did you meet for the first time, and why have you been scoring so many projects together since?
Like I said, he's been he started off as my assistant. So I had a personal assistant called Uno.
How old was he?
I don't have a clue. I don't know. He's a couple of years younger than me. I don't know. You have to ask him. It's like it's like 10 years ago. So he was maybe, I don't know.
What was the first project you officially worked together as co-composers?
I had both Uno and Patrick on this Bridge, this big TV series. And then we made a couple of other films. And I kind of do different projects. So a couple of films I made this year. We made a 4th season of Bridge 1 year ago. And that TV series ended now. I don't know if I think it's sold to Iran, but I don't know if you've seen it. It's a good TV series.
Oh, no, I haven't. Yeah.
You should see it. It's cool. And then I made another TV series with another guy, another assistant that I have. And then I made 2 films on my own. So it's like you do different stuff. Some things you could do together when like Battlefield. It's a huge assignment. It's like you wrote 16 hours of music or something. It's a lot of music. It's really hard to do it by yourself, and you also need to have the different skills. So Patrick's really good with rhythms and I mean everything, but I'm really bad with rhythms. So it's really have this kind of different that you're strong at different areas. It's really cool. I don't have like a list. I know that he's been assisting me on probably 20 films before going on to, or 15 films or so. And that's also a part of, I think that's a part of learning, you know, like you start doing maybe sampling or, you know, fixing projects, or it's like this learning curve. And then in the end of the day, you're a really skilled composer. It's like, probably it's a bit like being a carpenter. You learned you start building like the foundation, and then you start building nice things, and then in the end you can build a whole house. So it's they didn't start to write big projects, but he started to assist on stuff, you know. So I think that's a very good way of learning, actually, when it comes to film.
Did he have something very different, a taste very different than you, that you know you liked, or some that he could, or maybe he could do a thing similar to you, or, you know, that could help you?
It's always interesting when you work with people. It's always interesting to have things that are not so similar. It's interesting to have things that are combined, that if you combine the two, you get a much broader palette. So it would be a bit waste of energy if we would do exactly the same thing. So I think it's really good when you work with people. You want to kind of search people who complement you, or no, not compliment. Say you kind of add to your what you have.
Complete you, actually.
Anyway, now they're kind of together. You get a more fuller palette, and you have more content. That's what you're looking for. And it's when you do films, it's a lot of, I mean, this year I have 5 or 6 projects, so it's impossible to do it all by yourself. So I'm doing like one TV series with my other Frederick that I work with, and Patrick and I did Battlefield, and I'm doing 2 films by myself where they try to assist me as much as they can. You know, you have to just be like a team, and the team is the most important. You have to be very in one way, you have to be very loyal, because it's a lot of work, and you're always working. You have to do things on time, in time pressure. But it also has to be like ultimately the most creative combination of people that work together. I really like having my team. You know, I have a guy in Vlad who's doing the orchestration in Slovakia, and Dave who's doing all mixing and editing, and it's really, really great to have. I've been really wanting to have that for a long time, and the last 5 years or so I've had this more fixed team, and I really love it, because now I can probably take a big American film without a problem, because you need to have this. If they have 20 people, I have 5 people, but it's still you need this kind of thing where people always work, you know.
Yeah, that's great. So speaking of collaboration, did you have a direct collaboration with Gustavo Santaolalla on the thing We Lost in the Fire?
Yeah, we went. I was working with him in his studio in LA.
So how was the experience? How is he?
He was super nice, and his friend and producer Annibal was also super nice. They were very gracious and very nice. I felt a bit young and a bit Swedish when I went there. I felt small because they were in a beautiful studio in LA, and they were super gracious and super nice, and they were kind of time-wise, I spent more time with Annibal, who was doing the kind of things around the recordings and, you know, sitting in the mix, because I came in really late, so I was sitting with him in the mix, and he was really super nice to me. You know, taking me out to see New York and seeing the restaurants, and they were really sweet. And it was a somewhat hasty thing, but they made it. It was a really great experience, and he's a great composer and musician.
Yeah.
It was like he was doing takes in his studio. It was like, wow. It's just
Yeah.
it was really nice. And it was also, I mean, if you talk about I have a bit like that here. So if I would go to LA and stay there, I'd need to have the same. He had the same environment as I have here. He had this really nice studio and in a really nice house, and you want to be in a creative place, and he had a really creative place. So that's another thing of going to another country and write music. It's not so easy to sit on a hotel room or a rented 9 square meter, whatever. It's just nice to have a space where you can do your best work,
Yeah.
And that's yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about Battlefield 1. I love that game. The war stories are amazing. And when I finished the game, I was I was going to party and I was No. I finished the game, and after that, I was going to party. And in the back of the cab, I was listening to the soundtrack, and suddenly I started crying. I cried so hard, and it was a very awkward moment between me and the cab driver. And that said, I think you and Patrick have this superpower of making the sweetest and saddest music. How do you approach these moments, like Let the Right One In and Battlefield, to really make the audience warm and cry?
I think it somewhat, you can somewhat go back to the things we talked like 5 minutes ago, but having the courage to not do what's in your safety zone, but kind of try to stretch. So in order to write something that's, I would think, I don't know this, but I would think that it kind of hits something true. I mean, true, something that feels true to people. And in order to do that, you're not jumping on the first conclusion, but you're kind of working with something intuitively, with your intuition. That feels like this feels really nice. This feels really great, in a way. So in a way, I think it's about fine-tuning your own emotions. I mean, as a composer, and then you, when you write something, you feel. I have this thing in Swedish. You have 2 names for composer. One is composer, and the other name for composer is. Let's see how you say it. Note setter or whatever. You set notes. So that's that other name for. That's kind of the classical name for the composer. Tonsättare. You set notes on the paper, and I always thought that my work is to know what notes that are real and what notes that are fake. What the notes that are the right ones and the notes that are not the right ones, and that's kind of my what I'm skilled for is you play a lot and you like improvising stuff, and then oops, stop. This is something. This is not bad. This is pretty good. And then you kind of stop, and then you go, and this is shit. Oops, stop. This is really cool. And you kind of you train this inner sensitivity meter that kind of goes like. And I would think that if you feel the way you said, we're pretty good at kind of feeling when, okay, now we hit something that matters, something that is really for real. Instead of just going with something that works, or like this is sad. Okay, let's write sad music. And also another thing, just talking about great composers and great musicians. There's a Swedish piano player he died in a car accident when he was young, but he's a super good jazz piano player called Jan Johansson. He's one of the super good piano player. He's like influenced a lot of the Americans like Keith Jarrett and these guys. He's a really good jazz piano player. And he said once that I want to make people cry with a C major. That's the thing that's also a thing that I want to kind of achieve. I want to play C major and then everybody starts crying. So it's also about how you do stuff.
Exactly.
So if you have a song and you make it with the right breathing, and you stop, and it's about this human pace. Then suddenly it kind of reflects on some universal thing that I don't know. Yeah, I can feel myself when we record stuff. Also for this Battlefield 5 now, you feel it in the studio. It's like, wow, this is something. Now we're hitting on something. This is good. You know, when everybody's having the same pace or breathing, and it's kind of, it's about how you do. It's firstly that you find the right notes, but then it's how you kind of do them. You have to push a lot of energy into the notes. I think.
Yeah,
I don't have a good answer for that. I mean, basically, it's about intuition, don't you think? It's about
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you tried.
And this is very. I mean, it's one thing that write something that can connect with people, but the other thing is, let's give the example of Battlefield 1. I haven't had a chance to play Battlefield 5 yet, but I know it's going to be amazing. But I was playing the beta of Battlefield 1 and the whole Battlefield 1, and in the multiplayer where you're just collaborating with people, fighting each other and having fun, I was hearing these music that are sad, that tell the story of sacrifice. The exact same experience of the single player game, the war stories, is there in the multiplayer too. And I was very shocked at how you could fuse that into multiplayer, where people are mostly competing with each other, but the whole general feeling of the game, the war stories, was still there. And that is true in Let the Right One In. And that is a very, very hard film to compose, I guess, because it's so many things in one movie. It's a very dark movie. It's about vampires, and it's about kids. It's about love. It's about childhood, and so many things into each other. And you play them all with, like, a piano is playing, and you can get all those feelings in just the piano. And having the idea is one thing, and how you can finish the idea in the movie is another thing. And that is something that I love about your work. Kon-Tiki is exactly the same thing. And how do you get inspired for such projects like Battlefield, like Let the Right One In? How do you get inspired for World War I or Vampire?
I think this is like 15 questions you just asked. So we talk about Battlefield 1 first. I think it's a huge undertaking. So it's like it's not one thing, but you have like a team. So me and Patrick, we're working really hard, and we have our guys like Fredrik and Dave and Vlad, those guys.
Yeah.
We're like many people working on a lot of stuff, even though we are kind of the guys who decide on this project, decide what to do. But there's a lot of manpower going into doing good stuff. And then we have our friend and our kind of I don't know, we should say boss, but the guy who decides on the dice, the sound head of sound,
audio director,
Benz Pajor. He's like a great friend, and he's a super good sound.
I know him.
They always win everything. They win all the prizes. But when we were nominated to a lot of prizes, he won everything. He's like he's a genius of sound and film. But he's so smart. So he would take the music and he will kind of put it. So when you have it in multiplayer, it's a lot of Benzo work, putting it in. So it's like him understanding what we're after and just getting. I'm really a non-gamer, so I'm like. So you have a lot of the stuff. I would say that some of the stuff I've been contributing to, and also Patrick, is kind of making it feel more real because they were real people. So I've always had this feeling that it's a bit. If we can't get the feeling that it's worth anything, then I feel ashamed. Because there are real people here. I know that it's a game. I know that it's fun, and I know all this. But I still feel that it would feel really awful if people wouldn't feel that it's sad, because it's super sad. I mean, it's like so sad that you can't imagine. I saw this new trailer from a documentary by Peter Jackson about.
They shall not grow old.
And it's so sad. I mean, so you have to have the two feelings at the same time. Yes, you should have fun, and yes, you should play, but you should also understand that this is the worst thing that nearly have happened to humanity, and you can't kind of oversee that. And I think we succeeded pretty good in Battlefield to have these two things going on the same time. It's like it's a divided thing. Everybody knows that you're playing a football game when you're in multiplayer. That's obvious. But still, it's nice that it resonates with some kind of grief, because it's a crazy thing. And I think actually we succeeded even better in the DLCs. I don't know if you played them, but there's even more work put into the music there in the multiplayer to make it. We had this idea. I'm a bit proud of that idea. We had this idea of making it very hard to hear the same piece two times. So we have 6 layers of music.
Oh yeah, I was about to ask about that.
I'm very proud of that, because it's like I saw my son. I'm not a player, but he played some other.
How old is he?
Now he's 21. So he's a percussion player. He plays vibraphone, marimba. So it's really good to have an in-house percussion player. But he played another game. I shouldn't say the name, but he played another game. And it was so boring, because it was, when he died, it was the same dialogue, and it was the same music, and and he didn't get past this place. So he died at the same place 5 times, and 5 times I had to hear the same piece, the same dialogue, and I was like, I can't stand this. So I heard that. I said we have to have at least 5 different things. And then the 5 different things, they start at different times also. So you have like millions of variations.
So you hand over the layers to Ben, and he does the layering in the game engine?
There's a lot of people. Benze. He's the head of sound. So I think they're like 12, 15 people. So they were doing all this stuff. We had a lot of help from another guy called Magnus. He was helping us very much with the single player gameplay, stuff. But I think it's partly it's them doing that, but it's also partly us doing variations of a thing. So if you have a theme, you would do it with big drums, and then you would do a second take where you would have only melody and strings, and you would do small things, and you would do separate things that are just ambiances. Like there's a lot of weird stuff going on, both in Battlefield 5 and in Battlefield 1, that are more ambient. So it's like having this thing that whenever you I saw it working in in Lawrence of Arabia. I played through all of. I didn't play, but people played through Lawrence of Arabia, and it really worked greatly. When you got killed, you were transformed to another place, and it started an absolutely new feeling. And it was just great that it was new all the time. But the same. It was the same, but it was new. Yeah. So it was the same feeling, but it was new, small variations.
And so you played the Battlefield yourself in order to understand what you do with it?
No, I've seen it 1,000 times, but I don't play. Patrick plays.
Oh.
I'm a super non-gamer. But I've seen it. I've seen them play thousands of times. So I've seen the things like.
So you actually see the game and you score upon it.
Yeah, and also you sit with them when they play, and you see. It's very obvious when it works, and when it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So it's not. It's like it's a bit like film. If it has a good flow, it has a good flow, and if it feels like woo,
But I imagine it's a little bit harder than doing films, right?
Oh, it's not harder. It's just it's different. It's different in a way where it's kind of the open architecture makes it a bit more hard to know where it goes, and it's all these variations that you could go there, but you could also go there. You can jump over a bridge. It's all this kind of, and it makes it very deep in a way when you want to put music to it. So you can't only make like one piece and then it's done. You have to do all this different stuff, and you have to have a lot of. What I've found, and I don't know if it's right, but that's how we attacked Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 1, is that it's really, if you nail the world, that's a really good thing. You have this is like France. Yeah. Okay. And then you do a lot of music in that kind of feeling, and then they can kind of push it out and make it this, what do you call it? This kind of sets, or what you call. They can make them. They can make a good curve on them with our music. And then you, of course, in single player, you write specifically for all the cinematics and stuff, and you for all transitions and for all, there's a lot of kind of dedicated things. And when you have like pre-end rounds in the end of multiplayer, you have all these kind of things where you have to write.
You did an amazing, about talking about the right into locations. You did an amazing job scoring the Middle Eastern part of Battlefield 1. And it was very, very authentic. And I'm living in the Middle East and I really dig it. So how did you approach that?
I just have to check one thing. Wait. We had, when I made a film called In a Better World, a film by Susanne Bier that won the Academy Award a couple of years ago, I had a singer in called Shamiran. She's a Kurdish singer, and she's a super good singer because she has this low alto voice. And we got her in for this project also, and her husband Karsan, he's also a Kurdish guy. He plays a lot of drums and he's a composer. So he was with us on this all these things because obviously he's much more skilled in this music. I've been actually recording a lot of this music too, but it's still really nice to have people. You're always, once again, back to this team thing that you have to have the right people. So he did a great job. He did some recordings in Kurdistan with ney flute and oud and stuff. And then we used that in our special music. So it's not like his music, but he kind of helped us with all this nice, authentic, nice stuff. And Shamral did a great recording too that we used. And then we did a lot of drums with different drummers. A couple of them were Swedish, but they studied Middle East music. So we have this kind of, we made libraries with different hand drums and stuff. So it was a lot of effort went into that actually. Yeah. And then once we had the libraries with all the ney flutes and all the oud and stuff, we started writing our own music and kind of adding. That's what I always do, or what we always do. Kind of have when you have the colors, you can start writing, and then it doesn't have to be like Middle East music, but it's more like music that has this touch. So I think a lot of the drums they're not like traditional drums. They're more like, in the style of, but then I also like that mission really. I mean, I like Lawrence of Arabia. It feels really well. Yeah. I like it. It feels really good. So yeah, Karsan and Shamran was on that, and then we had. I think I don't remember so far. You have to ask me about Battlefield 5. I remember that because we haven't you heard it on Spotify either?
No. I played a game after that. I listened to the soundtrack.
No, it's too.
I played the beta actually, but I haven't played the war stories.
No, it's too long time ago. But I remember I really liked it because it had this kind of desert feeling, and it has. We made a lot of we made a lot of sample libraries to get this desert feeling with this, this rattlesnake sounds.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's you don't want to be like exactly right in the location. You just want to have the feeling of the location. Yeah. So I think we got that through the ney flute and this specific instruments. But then we could write our own music on top of that in a way. I think that's how we approached it.
Yeah. So tell me about the differences between scoring Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5. What's the difference between World War I and World War II?
That's a hard question. I don't know. It's mostly it's different stories. So I would say that when you write for different mediums, it's about stories. And in Battlefield 1, it had a couple. The stories from there. And in Battlefield 5, it's very different stories. So it's like that's one, and it's more technical advanced, of course. So you have a kind of a different approach to the whole scoring thing. I liked Battlefield 1 in a way because it was the first modern war, what you call it, but it was also the last old war. So it was this kind of transition where they used to have like horses riding in, but it still had like, it was like, you've seen the pictures, it's like crazy thing. They have these iron helmets like in the 1300s, but they were still in 1915. It's this crazy mixture of different times. So it's kind of very, it's a very weird thing to. We got a lot of. We were in Battlefield 1. There was a creative director called Stefan, who was really inspiring us a lot with films and pictures and stuff. And he was sending us all this crazy stuff. One with this Italian guys going with a iron helmet because they didn't want bullets. So it looked like a knight from the when they were doing crusades in the 1,000 years ago. And that we haven't seen that in the World War II. It's much more modern and it's much more, on a bigger scale and, like that. I think we address it not like this is World War One. We have to write like this. It's more on emotional basis. I think they're kind of similar, the two games. It's hard for you to say now when you haven't heard it, but it's similar. We wanted to keep them like one thing because World War One led to World War Two. So it's like wanted to have this connection. So the last song in DLC 4 is it DLC?
Yeah, DLC.
DLC 4, Apocalypse. The last song sounds like the first song in the prologue. So it's like the outro that's called epilogue. And the last a couple of chords there are the same chords that starts the prologue of. So it's like it should be like that. And we wanted to connect and we wanted to be this, not the same, but we want it to be
a continuous experience. That's amazing.
I think it's. I don't think we treated it very much different. It was more like the different stories were very, very different. So we have to treat them. We're up in snowy Norway. This and it's obviously it has more shiny sounds and more flashlights and more. So it's more like that, I would say. And then it's maybe a bit more bigger songs. I don't know. It's too close. It's just right now.
Let's talk about Battlefield theme. That's a very famous and beloved theme. What do you think about it, and how did you approach it? One amazing thing you did in Battlefield 1 with Battlefield theme was, I was expecting that to happen. I was like, where's the Battlefield theme? And throughout the game, it wasn't happening until there was in this war story, they were trapped in this tank. And I think the first time you fully embraced the theme was there. Am I right?
I think what we've done in Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 is that we use the theme all over. We make literally we make like 1,000 variations. So we know how to turn it around, reverse it, put it upside down, play it in 3 different layers. We've done I think we've done everything you can do with that theme right now. You play like a really fast song, and then it's like 2-3 notes from Battlefield theme. We kind of in every song there's something that is related to Battlefield theme.
But when they're in the tank, I think it was the first time we used the legacy. Legacy
we haven't
theme. We
haven't used the legacy theme so much because it's it has something. It's hard to say. It's a really great theme. It's somewhat hard to make it feel serious with that theme. I think it's kind of make like Indiana Jones. So if you want to have this kind of, when you have a deep understanding of the people and everything, it's kind of hard to do da 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 da. But when you have as a theme that we have kind of derived a lot of inspiration from the notes all over. But it's just that if you want the more filmatic things, the first thing we did was kind of taking down the tempo, making it much slower. You have like this more
stretched every note.
Yeah, and also stretch and also changing some notes in the end of the theme to get it more like flying in a way. And I remember that scene actually when they're going on this road. I really liked it when it came there.
Yeah, exactly. It was as you said, it's a very fun theme, and like when that happened, it was a very, very powerful moment. I mean, we were expecting that to happen, but we didn't know when. When that happened, the tank started working. Oh, hell yeah, this is Battlefield. This is fun. We're going to get out of here. And that was amazing use of music there. So you guys use brass like no one else. How do you achieve those heavy, fat texture brass sounds?
I don't really know. I think we had the privilege to record in one of the best studios in the world for these two games. We recorded in Abbey Road with the best musicians. They're like super duper good. And then we have a lot of appropriate brass samples that we made ourselves that are very heavy. They're like raw, you know. So you usually you kind of blend stuff. You
use a synthesizer underneath them.
Yeah, it's often everything of all of everything. Because
how do you manage
to create it's dynamic. So you want to create like if you want to have, you said that you cried in a cab. So that's probably in a part where you are very kind of withheld. So you're kind of doing this withheld emotion. But in order to get that kind of dynamic, you want to have the highest. Also, you want to have like 1%, but 100%. So you kind of want to stretch the dynamic. You should really be really high when you're high and really low when you're low. That's kind of emotional in itself. Yes, sometimes you double the orchestra with synth orchestra, and sometimes you just use the sample brass, and sometimes you use the brass live, or it's just whatever that makes the most impact. But brass is really cool because I think we've come to know that during these two projects. It's like 4 years. We've been writing so much music, and it's a long time. Is that brass is like the energy of a bomb. It's like it has so much energy. So when you say to them, "Could you play strong?" and they start playing strong, you always have to say, "No, not that strong." It's like they have so much power. No, it's really interesting that you want to, and they can also play very somber and beautiful when they kind of do it with health. So it's like, I would say that it's a favorite. I mean, strings are also favorite. The orchestra is favorite. Everything is favorite. But it's interesting with the sheer power that they can produce. I think we had like 6 horns and 6 trombones or something like the bass, tuba, and trumpets. It's just like a massive wall of energy, and that's really cool. And
they're all air, so they come,
Yeah.
This sudden burst of air.
And it's also interesting. There was one in the recording. It was the tuba player had a problem with traffic or something, or came a little late, and then we thought this sounded great. And then when he came, it kind of one guy. And the room just filled up with the tuba. So it's just interesting. Wow. He's like 1 octave below, and it's like, it's just interesting that can happen.
So tell me about your DAW plugins and toys you work with.
This is, I think everybody has to find their own sound and, find what works for them. I have my stuff that I like, and I kind of go very, I use it very heavily in my projects because I want my sound.
Yeah.
So I'm like this lexicon guy who has all these lexicon reverbs all over, because that's
I use that.
That's a very important part of my sound. Like in different layers, I have, it's like this old reverbs, hardware reverbs that I love. And then I use a lot of that stuff. I use a lot of UAD and a lot of, I use different stuff. But I think that the most important thing is that you make your own sounds. That you're doing, if you do a project, it's really good to have this thing that I want to achieve this world. And then how will I achieve this world? Okay, I'm going to sample I will do.
Exactly.
I will do the rhythms on a coffee cup or whatever, because I think as long as you're doing, it's not it's a bit hard doing the same that everybody else is doing. So it's good to kind of do your own worlds. So I think that's much more interesting than what plugs do. There's a lot of good plugs out there, and you just have to find the stuff that relates to your sound.
What's your DAW?
I'm using Logic. I'm a diehard Logic fan.
Oh, so in matter of electronic music, you use mostly analog or soft synths?
Sorry?
Using electronic in order to make electronic music. I mean, on layering like in Battlefield, you use analog or digital.
That's the same thing. I mean, it's like I'm a soundaholic. I buy all this instrument, but in the end of the day, it's really no difference. Whatever makes it work. So I can use, I can use Xil's synth. It's a soft synth. That's really great. Or I can use Zebra. It's really great. But I can use this little guy. I love this little guy.
Oh, what is this?
It's a crazy modular synthesizer from Portland in the US. It's a super cool synth. So, I mean, I have all this. You see one there, I think. It's,
yeah. I can see it.
2,600. So it's like, it's just whatever makes it fly is good. And I really love doing my own sounds on real synthesizers, because what I do is that I record them and make my own EXS. I like my own sounds.
Oh yeah.
So that's usually how I work. But I mean, if you get the work done with a soft synth, that's great. It doesn't matter. I mean, if it flies, it flies. I mean, if it's nice, then it's nice. Yeah. So I don't have this thing that it has to be like it has to be analog. I don't care. It's like if it's good, it's good. And actually, it sounds really good. In the beginning, it sounded really crappy with all this digital technique, but now it sounds super good. So it's
exactly.
With all our Arturia stuff sounds great. So it's like, it's really cool stuff out there right now. So I think it's more about being creative and knowing what to do with the different tools. That's much more interesting.
So I'm a huge fan of Thomas Alfredson and Spen Sandberg. How's the experience working with these two amazing directors?
I got your first, but I didn't get the other one. What did you say?
Spen Sandberg, Kon-Tiki.
Yeah, okay. You mean Espen. I'm working with Espen now.
Yeah. I know.
Espen was
recently finished the trailer, right?
Yeah, we just finished the trailer for the Amundsen. The Kon-Tiki was made by Espen Sandberg and Joakim. There were two. But I think if you take Thomas first, I've only made one film with him, and it was Let Right One In, and he was just fantastic to work with. He's just a genius, and he knows exactly what he wants. But he's instead of kind of telling you where to go, he will kind of gently push you in a very mild and intellectual way in the right direction. So it was a cool experience, because I think he got exactly what he wanted, and I think that I made good music for that film, Let Right One In. But in a way, I think he kind of just made me do it, because he's so smart and he's so, he's a very, very good director. And it makes you think that you're super good. And then suddenly you are super good, because he's one of these guys who make you feel really good. And he has this discussion about the film that makes it very, you feel the importance of the film and you understand the emotional layers and stuff. So he was really... I thought it was really, really nice to work with him. I would love to work with him again. And he's, the whole film kind of breathes of his this human touch that he has to the pictures, the music, the sound, the actors, everything has this kind of feeling. So it was just a sheer pleasure to work with him.
Yeah.
And have meetings.
So can you talk about the future projects you're working on?
You also asked about Espen. Kon-Tiki was a great film because it was about finding world. They were going to a Pacific island with a raft. That's the story.
Yeah. I love that movie so much.
But the thing was to find this sound, this proper sound that would make this film kind of have its own feeling. And I found this guy playing a conch shell, a shell, like a...
Yeah.
And that was kind of the thing. So you said that in Let Right One In, it was piano, but it wasn't only piano. For me, the main instrument in Let Right One In is a waterphone that makes all this chilling, icy sound. And these icy sounds are kind of transformed into strings and piano. And in Kon-Tiki, when we found this conch shell, this horn from the Pacific Ocean, it kind of opened up this whole world of epic, but also ethnic.
Yeah.
And all the drums. There's a lot of drums, and that was Patrick assisting me with all these drums. The 12/8 drums that are playing that. So I think it's like both these directors are really cool because they let you dream. Instead of saying it has to sound like whatever and it has to sound like this film, they're like, okay, we have to find a sound for this film. We have to find our own sound. And we're doing the same on this Amundsen now, and it's really cool because he's going to the South Pole. It's no one. I mean, when he went to the South Pole, Amundsen in 19 whatever, he was the first one who had ever been there. It's just what is the sound of that? So it's really interesting to find that.
Yeah.
No.
So, thank you so much, Johan. I have so many questions, and all this interview, I was thinking, should I ask this, or it's going to take time, or should I ask that? I can talk to you like a week, and still I have questions. Thank you so much, Johan. Your music always accompanies me through many moments of my life. And as a composer, I'm always inspired by your great work. And currently I'm working, as I said, on a project with your music as a theme music. So thanks for bringing us gamers, movie lovers, joy, tears, tension, and love. And I wish you the best, and I can't wait to talk to you again.